I work at the University of Guelph, and my role is Alumni Advancement Manager there, working with young alumni and students. I want to thank Ben for starting out our day well. Ben is one of the real good guys to know in this industry, especially in the realm of working with young alumni, so definitely connect with him over the course of the day. Queens is doing a lot of great things, so when he has approval to share his plan with you, I'm sure he will take that opportunity. So I'm here today to talk to everyone about epic fails and what we can learn from them. Fortunately, none of the things I'm going to talk today about were actually epic in the sense that the institution didn't close, no one lost their jobs, but epic fails is kind of a fun word to use. So, and so what I'm going to try to talk about is things we can learn from, maybe not fails, but things that aren't as successful as we hope, and give the group some opportunities to maybe share some failures they've had at their institutions and what other schools can do to learn from those mistakes or opportunities. So I'm going to try to spend about 20 minutes. Erin already told me to not talk too much, so 20 minutes will maybe be 25, and then we'll leave the room open for a few questions or some sharing opportunities from the group as well. So we'll jump right into it. My first failure I have here is not engaging in fundraising with new grads right away. And I really do believe that this is an area that we don't always look at carefully, and we tread on eggshells a little bit with our new grads and don't want to offend them by asking them for money or don't want to bombard them with information, but it really is an opportunity where they are at their highest affinity to your school. They're proud they graduated from your institution, and it really is an opportunity for us to engage them, send them personalized invites, and make them feel like they're part of an alumni family, which is hundreds of thousands of alumni strong. And so I do really believe strongly that it is important to engage with these grads right away. In my role, I do events and fundraising, so we do both of those, and I do think you can ask them softly to be engaged with the university. You don't have to go in full strength with solicitation appeals and that kind of thing, but I do think it's important for them to get the messaging and to be educated about what it means to be part of the alumni family and how you can contribute back to your institution. So at the University of Guelph, we give all new grads a new grad handbook at convocation, and that has a lot of information about what it means to be a grad, what it means to be an alumnus of the university, how they can get engaged, what the university can offer them. And it's really good information piece for them to flip through while they're sitting through an hour-long convocation ceremony and just learn a little bit more about what it's like now to be a grad from your institution. And that's an opportunity for us to share with them information about volunteering, giving back their time, talent, and treasure, and really impacting the next generation of leaders that come from your school. When we're looking at what we do for engaging and fundraising with new and young grads, it really stuck with me when we did a young alumni survey in the fall, and we had 1,000 respondents to the survey. We sent it out to about 12,000, so it was a pretty good focus group, and a lot of people took the time to actually fill in the free forms with comments and feedback, which is great, and it shows that our young grads want to be engaged and they really want to be part of what we're building at the U of G alumni, as part of the U of G alumni family. And so two of the comments really stuck with me. One of our grads said, as a recent alumni, I feel that your focus is only to include older, more prestigious alumni who have lots of money at events, and the costs can be marginalizing. And I think we look at a lot of the events we run, and when you have to buy a ticket for the event, and it might not be catered towards what young grads actually want and what kind of events they're actually looking for. And so that really stuck with us. And then the second point is more about the philanthropy. At one point I thought I would donate when I came to a point in my personal circumstances, and it allowed me to do so. As that transition occurred, I largely lost touch with the university despite being very involved on campus during my undergrad. I don't feel highly motivated to be engaged at this point. So that's really a failure on our part. Engaging those folks. And I think that's what we see a lot is people love their time at the university, and then life just takes over and they get a new job and they move away, they have kids and all that kind of stuff, and life just takes over. And it doesn't mean their affinity is any less. It just means you've moved down the totem pole of importance in their current life experiences. So what we really try to do is engage our grads right away. So I was talking to Amanda from Cornell, who Cornell does a 0-year reunion, which I think is kind of a cool idea, and I think she's going to talk about that a bit later on. So that's engaging them in events right away, within a few months or within that first year of graduation. I do also think it's important to have a welcome call from your phone-a-thon program if you have that resource. We do that with our new grads. We call them, welcome them to the alumni family, let them know what it means to be a grad, opportunities to come back to campus, events that are upcoming. And we tell them about the importance of giving back in various ways to the institution. So that's volunteering, speaking to students, sharing your story, and considering the university as one of your philanthropic choices. So we do have that call from the phone-a-thon. It's really a soft message just to really welcome them and get them excited about being part of the alumni family. Exclusive invites to upcoming events is an interesting opportunity. So when you're sending out invites to 50,000 grads, if you have a portfolio of young grads, maybe forward it in advance to them or send personal invites and just in the subject line say personal invite to this event. And it makes them feel like they're more than a number of 100,000 grads that you might have at your school. And then ambassador programs. The University of Guelph started a Forever Griffin ambassador program. So it's very much a social media ambassador program where everyone gets a t-shirt and every month they get an email with 5 tidbits about the university, from events to history to research happening on campus, and they're asked to share that among their network. So it really keeps them engaged with what's going on, keeps them in the loop on news at the university, and it allows them to be ambassadors for our brand and share that information with their peers and their networks as well. So it really keeps them engaged at a very easy level, and they're already going to be doing that kind of thing, so we might as well ask them to share our message as well. And as I'm going through, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and then we can kind of answer any of those. Failure number 2, I think, is thinking that just because alumni went to your institution, they will come back for any event you run. I kind of call this the Field of Dreams model, that we, and Ben alluded to this in his presentation, that we sometimes think, well, they went to Guelph, so of course they're going to want to come back to campus for an event. That's just not the reality of it. And we experienced this in the last year and a half. We celebrated, I'll do a little plug like Ben did for his, but Guelph celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. We had a big gala. Campus was pretty much shut down for all these events happening. People loved it. People had such high affinity. They had the nostalgia of when they went to Guelph. And we made the mistake of thinking that, okay, so next year, the same thing's going to happen. People will come back to campus. They're going to love it. Well, that's not the reality. It was a one-time event that people just had such great experience. And the next year was this past June for Alumni Weekend, where we realized that's not organic. That was a one-time event, people come, we still have to really work for it and really advertise things and do things that young grads want, and not just assume that because they went to Guelph and we create an event, they're gonna wanna come and attend the event. So a couple opportunities, definitely utilize volunteers to spread the word. We had some great events this year at Alumni Weekend. We had a craft beer tasting, and we did a great Griffin race, so we're the Guelph Griffins. It was a scavenger hunt on your phone around campus. And we kind of thought those would be fun events, and once registration opened, crickets. Yeah. But again, they're new events, and you really need to tell people about them. So what we did is, we did a lot of these things to really get the word out. We utilized our volunteers to connect with their peers, to invite them and let them know what's happening around campus. And for these events, we advertise the events where grads are. Aaron helped me out with some Facebook ads and some boosts, which we hadn't done before, and it really got the word out to a larger audience who maybe wouldn't have heard about the events through our email or our e-invites. And then the really big thing is asking alumni what kind of events they want to see. And Ben again alluded to this, that we sometimes think we know what events people want. But we might be even 2, 5, 10, 15 years removed from the demographic we're working with. And we really need to ask them what kind of events they want. And we did a young alumni survey, like I mentioned, in the fall. And that included information about communications, events, philanthropy, and really got some good feedback on what type of events young grads want to see. And so I'm happy to share that information in the follow-up with the group as well. And then make events fun and relevant. When we talk to our young grads, they didn't want to come back for a sit-down dinner. There might be a small pocket that does. But that's not what they wanted. They wanted networking events. They want events where they can meet colleagues. They want events where they can potentially get jobs from. And professional development and build their skills. So make those you can create those events, but make them fun and relevant. And one of the best ideas is getting some of your alum to help plan those events, or to be on a little focus group and ask their advice about what kind of events they want to see and how they would execute those. Failure number 3, thinking that young grads have a long attention span. And I wouldn't even say young grads, maybe it's just thinking that people in general have a long attention span.
I've already stopped listening.
And one of the best examples I have, we have critics in the audience here. One of the best examples I have, and I'll give a shout out to McMaster. There's a couple of you in the room here. You can cheer if you want for McMaster. Maybe I'll skip this slide. So McMaster has a great young alumni program called Mac 10. If you want more information, definitely talk to Chris or Aaron here. It's a really robust program. I often steal a lot of things from them. Borrow things from them. And what they had was they had a great idea to have young grads share tips. And it was called Mac Good Advice with new grads. And so they filmed those. They were, I think some of them were about 27 minutes long. They had a fair amount of views. It was good content. But when they realized it, I think Aaron did stats, and people weren't watching the full video. They'd watch the first chunk of it or portions of it. So they had a genius idea to create a 2-minute tips video series from that. So it's really a 2-minute video sharing advice with new grads, life skills, professional development skills. And they really saw the viewership spike for those type of videos. And it actually did win CCA Prix d'Excellence silver medal for a new idea creativity on a shoestring budget this past year. So congratulations, McMaster. But it really was a opportunity for them to look at something that was a good idea, but maybe didn't work, and tweak that into something that really did work well. So what to do? Less is more. Mac 10 2-minute tips is a great example. Email messages, when you're sending it out, readers typically look at the intro message, scroll down to the end, and read the last line or the PS. So make sure that when you are composing emails or event invites, put something important in the first line, important in the last line, and then if it really piques their interest, they'll go up and read the rest of it. But make sure you're putting important messages at the top and bottom. And learn from Twitter. Try and compose messages in 140 characters. Maybe not that extreme, but I'm a good example of that. I tend to talk and write more than probably is really needed for the type of communication. So I would say just try to make it simple, get to the point, and it's more likely that people will read it. Failure number 4, thinking that young alumni actually read your emails. This was maybe a real example of my browser history when I was doing this, but so don't hope that your e-news or your newsletters or your solicitations or anything will work on its own. They really are only work when they're partnered with a strategy, and hope is not a good strategy. And I learned that the first couple times we sent emails out to young grads, you cross your fingers and hope that people open it and hope that people register for your event. That's not a good strategy. And so really when you are sending out some communications, it gives you a perfect opportunity to have some face-to-face one-on-one contact with people. And so pick up the phone or send them an email and say, hey, did you get that newsletter that just went out? There's a great article on the 4th page. Or hey, did you see that invite to the event? Here's, I'm sending you a personalized invite because I really think you would benefit from coming to this event or you'd really enjoy it. So it gives you a great opportunity to connect with people and follow up on those communications. So that's partnering in e-appeal, especially if you're doing fundraising, an e-appeal with a mini calling blitz, potentially from your phone-a-thon. So if you're calling about a certain project, see if the phone-a-thon can put that on in the queue, and they can call those specific people as well. And then, like I mentioned, send personalized event invites after e-news has been sent out. So it's really that personalized touch with young grads as well. How am I for time here?
15.
Okay. Failure number 5. So the last 2 I have here are really, I would say, not necessarily specific to young grads, but they are social media related, and I think that they do connect with our young grads and are important, and I'll share a couple stories about those. So not squatting on your institutional username on every social media platform. I don't know if this picture is relevant. I don't know.
There's no squatting happening.
Don't Google squatting. It's weird stuff. So 2 examples I have of that. When Instagram first came out, we had a young grad or a student at the time create University of Guelph as their Instagram handle, and they were posting pictures around campus. They have thousands of followers because people think it's an official feed. So I met with a young grad offhand, and he mentioned he wanted to hand over the handle to the university. I thought that's great, what a nice gesture, but he wanted a $1,000 check for it. So needless to say, we said no, because I don't know, it's not really, I don't think, kosher to hijack accounts and try to sell them to the institution you got your degree from. But so that's a good example of when Instagram first came out. The University of Guelph probably should have squatted on that username, even if they hadn't planned on using it ever or for a few years. Another good example is U of G alumni. So we had a Tumblr account at one point that wasn't really managed great, and I think actually Lori might have been at Guelph when we had a Tumblr account.
Oh,
Okay, so we had a Tumblr account and there was information on it, but it wasn't kept as up to date as people would want to actually use it. So we are, speaking of Tumblr, our admissions department uses Tumblr and has great response and tons of viewership from that. So we kind of, I don't know if we just disconnected our account or what, but someone now has an account that's UofG alumni at tumblr.com, and it's like the main reasons that dogs bark. So not really affiliated with Guelph, but if you look that up, it makes sense that you'd think it was a UofG alumni account. So those are two examples of maybe just squatting on the username, even if you don't plan on using it, just so that no one else does it and potentially hurts your brand or confuses people when they're going to look up those accounts. And then my last failure is don't try and be everywhere until you can be excellent where you really are. And this is probably a good just life motto, but in terms of social media, we looked at that as well and looked at what social media platforms we were really engaging our young grads on and what areas they were getting benefit from. And we looked at the 4 big ones. So we use Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram as our kind of 4 main social media channels. And we could really spread ourselves thin and try to be on everything and be everywhere, but we don't have the resources, and most schools probably don't, to have the resources to effectively manage that and be good at all of those things. So we really made a conscious effort to be excellent in the areas we already are and not try to spread ourselves too thin and just try to be on everything. So like I said, you don't need to be on every social media platform, especially if you don't have the resources to manage it well. Focus on the ones with the highest benefit, outcome, and return. And don't be okay at everything when you can be awesome at a few things. And so that's what we really try to do, in our social media platforms are pretty robust because we have to focus on those specific ones. So my last comment is, just because it was a failure doesn't mean it was a bad idea. And I think it's really a good opportunity for us to look at the programming that we do for young grads. And the nice thing is that they do have a short memory sometimes. So you can try something, it doesn't work, and then the next year you try something different. People will forget about the first one that didn't work. And so I would just encourage the group to keep trying new things. We do that at Guelph, and try new programs, try new events, and see what clicks. And then also realize when to pull the plug on something that might have clicked and is now not working anymore. One good example for us is we do an annual Blue Jays game. We've partnered with McMaster and U of T a couple times, and we have 350 grads come out to a Jays game. It helps that they're winning right now, go Jays. Sorry, I know Amanda from Cornell is a Yankees fan, but and so we have really good success with that. We started out, we sold 100 tickets, and over the past few years, we've really escalated it. We sell 350 tickets. Next year, we're looking at doing 2 events, hopefully one on a Saturday for families and one on a weeknight for anyone else in the city. But it's a great opportunity. We have the process kind of ironed out now. It's pretty smooth. And so it's something we're looking at, but when looking at continuing to expand, but when it turns out that grads aren't interested anymore, we'll try to change it and do something different. So just because it didn't work or things don't work, don't get frustrated and think that it was a failure. It might have just not worked for that time, not worked for that audience, and tweak it. So I think we really need to continually move ahead and try new things with our young grads, try new strategies. And that's one of the great things about being in the room with all these folks is we have people who are doing new and innovative things daily. And we can really kind of share those strategies, steal those strategies, and work together to really focus on engaging this new generation of grads. And so that was it. I don't think I talked too much. It gives us.
You didn't talk enough.
Okay, so I didn't talk enough. I haven't heard that before. But I think we probably have about 10 minutes. So is there any questions that anyone had about any of the slides or the failures I talked about? And then is there any opportunities that people want to share some of the things that they haven't had success with at their schools and maybe tips on what other schools could look at. Yes.
I have a question about, like if you have something that turns out to be a failure, but you know it wasn't a bad idea, how to sort of re-pitch that to colleagues or leadership to say, no, we need to try this again a little bit differently. Like, do you have any tips on how to try that the second or
Sure.
third time?
I would go back to the hope point, and I've done that. We've done a few e-appeals to young grads, and the first time nothing, second time nothing, and I kind of think, well, I hope that if we do it third time, things would change, you know, the economy's a bit better. But I would just say that not pitching something as hopeful is probably your best bet, and then looking at strategies for how you can advertise it differently, or how you can utilize volunteers to get the word out differently. So I think just looking at a strategy and figuring out what didn't work the first time and how you can change that to make sure it works the next time is your best way to position that. It might still fail. And that's the hard thing, is when we think something's such a good idea and it just doesn't work, we have to, I guess, eventually, I'd say after probably 2 or 3 attempts, it's your time to pull the plug and say, okay, I think it's a good idea, but our young grads clearly don't resonate with it, so let's ask them. And it gives you the opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with maybe people that either didn't come but are engaged, and say, we ran this event, why weren't you there? We thought it was a great idea. And maybe you'll just hear from them that the timing wasn't right, it was in the middle of the winter, or the cost was off, or something like that. So it gives you an opportunity to use them as a focus group, I think. That's probably one of your best ways to position it. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, as a Guelph grad myself,
Perfect.
when did this program start for young alumni? What do you consider a young alumni?
Perfect.
Repeat
So
that one.
we have a proud Guelph grad in the back. So we'll book a meeting for later. And so the question was just about what would qualify as a young grad, and how we make that distinction. So for us, similar to, I think, most schools, we say grads within the last 10 years. But in my role, it's really changing. I think we're seeing a lot of affinity to non-academic areas at Guelph. So people who work in student government, people who work in student affairs, orientation volunteers. So I think we essentially look at, I would say, from the year 2000 and up, just because I want to qualify myself as a young grad still. But then also that's kind of morphed into, I think Queens has it, they call it special program, or special interest groups. So I would say ours is grads from 2000 and up and special interest groups. So those groups who don't fall under a certain faculty or under a certain college or an academic unit, but they didn't really fall anywhere, and someone needs to engage them in that way. So that's, I think, our definition that we go with. We don't have as formalized a young alumni program as MAC with MAC 10. So it's kind of a little bit, I work with grads from the 80s if no one else is working with them too, so. Michelle.
I have a more general question to the group. How, more for data, like how your advancement or development offices work with either the registrar's office and getting the data from the lab?
That's a great question, and we, I think, have that challenge as well. We have a good relationship with the registrar, so they'll send us student information for our phone-a-thon calling, but we do also sort of have an agreement with them that we're only going to use it for the purposes we ask for it for. But I think it's really hard, and I think that conversation really has to happen with your senior admin to talk to the registrar or admissions and make the case on why information should be shared university-wide, because there is a need to engage people at all levels, from when they're coming to the institution as students and as alum. So I think that conversation really needs to be from senior admin and make a valid case for why it's important. At least that's the experience that we've had at Guelph. I don't know if anyone else has any suggestions to Michelle on how to work with the registrar's office.
Bribes. Fruit baskets, cakes, whatever you can send them.
We could probably, if you want to connect with Michelle on the break to share some strategies, feel free. Yes, well, you guys can fight over who was first.
When are you going to have a student philanthropy program?
Great question. So the question was, do we have a student philanthropy program? We did, and I think with a lot of schools as well, unless you have the resources to really make it good, it's kind of just there. And that's what ours was. It was a team of volunteers. a few of those volunteers have actually become staff members, which is great. But it was a group that you'd meet, you'd have a plan for the next month, and you'd meet and nothing really came from it. So we've kind of, I would say, dissolved it for now. But we do really work on our alumni association, trying to communicate with them when they're entering university to just introduce the alumni brand. And then we're looking at ways to send messages to them over the course of their 4 years, just congrats, exams are done, enjoy your summer, welcome back from Christmas holidays, just so there's that U of G alumni branding throughout their 4 years. So they're not just hit with it and shocked in 4th year when they start to hear from the alumni department and all that kind of stuff. So I would say it's sort of disbanded, but we're trying to expand our communication with students from our alumni association to counteract that. We are looking at using some student ambassadors with the Forever Griffin Ambassador program though, so they can kind of share that among their peers.
When you talked about contacting new grads right away, how soon is right away? Like June, right after convocation, or the fall, or how soon do you try to do it?
Sure, that's a great question. I think different institutions have different kind of policies or mindsets on that. So we don't take them out of our solicitation emails or hard mailing or phone. So they still get all of that. And it depends on the cycle, but we don't really solicit them, I wouldn't say, for a year. But we call them in our call center, probably if they graduate in June, we probably call them in the fall, just as a welcome. And then for events, we still include them in all the emails they get, so the e-news or newsletter monthly, all the event invites and all that kind of stuff. So we don't really exclude them from anything. I know some schools, are there any schools here who don't really contact them for a year or 2 years, or do most people? Yeah. And is that just out of fear of making them angry that you're?
Well, we still do a congrat
Yeah.
call.
Oh,
right,
right.
We do a congrat call, but
Yes.
also,
And-
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and branch information.
Yeah, branch information, but we won't ask them, we won't ask them for 2 years now, but just on your when to call, one of the things that we gathered with doing a lot of young alumni, is, personal visits and asking them questions about stuff, is that we used to do it in the summer. They weren't even be around, but they'd always say, no, call us in the fall, because that's when they're thinking about going back to school again, and that they sort of have that in the air, and that they're excited to talk to the institution again. It makes a lot of sense, because I think we all kind of go through that, in the fall and when we're going back to school. So anyway, that's just the information we got. I think it's a good tip.
And we would arbitrarily send our welcome email 6 weeks after convocation. There was no real strategy. So we're looking at doing exactly what you mentioned, sending it during orientation week with a link to the week video from the past year, something like that, just to build up that nostalgia. So there is a reason we're sending it at that actual time. Yes.
We have both a student philanthropy council and a young alumni committee, and so what we did, our student philanthropy council started out like how you said, they kind of had a meeting once a month, and it was a lot of like me telling them what to do, and I found it was kind of like I was the student philanthropy council, but a lot of kids would be with me. So this year, I started by hiring 5 student volunteers and really trained them thoroughly on what we want to do, and I gave them the full power to run their own program. So right now they're planning their next semester, and they have amazing ideas, and they're so excited, and they've already engaged with many of the speaker groups, and it's really awesome to see when they have the power, how much more they're willing to put into it. For contacting our new grads, we did a grad class solicitation right before they convocated. So we called them, told them something about convocation, all the benefits that they need to know, and then asked them for $20.15. And everyone was really interested in getting back to us because they were really nervous about convocation. So we got a ton of contact information, which is really important. And we also got we got a really positive reception to asking for the grad class gift. They either said yes, or if they said no, they were like, email me. So.
And what school is that you're from, sorry?
I went to St. Michael's College in the University of Toronto.
Oh, cool, okay, great, thank you. Lauren.
I just wanted to mention, I'm from the University of Guelph. We have a very small graduating class every year. We've got about 900 students-ish that graduate, and because we're such a small school, the alumni department is actually very heavily involved with the convocation event itself. We are the main logistics planners, which I think is unique across most higher ed institutions, that it usually sits with the president's office or registrar in some capacity, but because of our kind of unique positioning, we actually have the ability to email our grads the day of convocation. So we time our emails so that They receive the email while they're in the middle of their ceremony, so as they leave and they check their phones, this is the first thing they're gonna do. The email is right there on the top of their inbox saying, hi, welcome, congratulations, and it's got all the information we need. We get like a 50 to 60% open rate and really high click rates on that as well. So if it's anything that your institution can do to work with your publication team, we've got a really, really great response to that.
Great, thanks, Lori. And that's a great segue into Erin McDonald's going to chat about convocation a little bit later this morning. And Ryerson does some great stuff with convocation. So I think definitely if you're interested in how to engage your grads right away after convocation, talk to Lori from Guelph Humber or Erin during her presentation later. Good. Okay, perfect. So thanks again, everyone. I'll be here obviously over the course of the day, so feel free to chat with me and enjoy the rest of the day. And then we'll have a 15-minute break and then come back for Amanda's presentation.